Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the fourth episode of the video series about my development workflow for Dotfiles. In this video we'll learn how you can use an app called Dotfiles Installer to create a flexible development environment for your Dotfiles project. We will continue to work on the basic Hyprland Rice that we have created together in the last episodes. I will show you the required steps on Arch Linux. But the Dotfiles installer is a Flatpak app. That means you can download the app from Flatpak directly and can use it on any distribution. And with that, let's jump in. So, welcome back to the Hyprland Rice from the last episodes. And before we now configure the development environment, you please make sure that your system is up to date. In Arch Linux, I do this with sudo pacman-s yu. You see a lot of updates are available and I'm back in a second. Updates have been installed successfully and now we can start to install the Dotfiles installer. For this we need two packages. First of all, we need to install Flatpak, sudo pacman-s flatpak, and we need the XDG desktop portal GTK. Now we should reboot the system. This is always good practice after the installation of Flatpak. And we are back. And now you see what can happen if you install a new version of Hyprland. You see there is a configuration conflict because the latest version has an updated configuration for gestures. So that means we have to start code, go into here the config folder and remove the line 220. Here we are, the gestures from the configuration. Yeah, and as soon as I save it, the error message is gone. And the same should be done here also with your project, of course. But before, please make sure that you have the latest version pulled from your repository. That's why I choose here pull. So now everything is up to date. I can go back to Hyprland, scroll down, and then you can push back the changes to your repository. Now we can close code for now and start Firefox. We open the page mylinuxforwork.github.io/Dotfiles installer. And here is the Dotfiles installer, and you see you can install the Dotfiles installer app from Flatpak. That's very easy. You click on it, and here you can open the drop-down and copy the installation command into a terminal. Now the dependencies and runtime environments will be installed, and in the last step, the Dotfiles installer. Very good, installation is done. So let's see, let's switch to the second workspace and search for Dotfiles installer, and here is the Dotfiles installer. Very good. Now we are ready to create the development project into our project folder for our Rice. So let's open Preferences, and you can enable here the developer tools. A new button here on top appears and you can create a project. You need to define a project ID, which is com.mylinuxforwork my Hyprland Rice in my case. Then you give the project a name, my Hyprland Rice, and I define of course, author, that's me. Then I can select the existing project folder. You know, it's here in Projects, Hyprland Rice, and click on Select. So the project is now created. Let's see if we open Dolphin. Go into Projects, Hyprland Rice, and you see here now the new development folder, and also here a so-called .inst file, which includes all the configurations of your project. So let's close Dolphin, and now let's install this project. Here is the .inst file by selecting the .inst file. And here you see all the information that you have entered, and the system has automatically added here a dev information to the ID and to the name, so that it's clear that this is your development environment. And now you can click here on download, and the files from your existing project will be now installed. We have no setup script created yet. This will be covered in the next episode when we start to prepare the .files for external distributions. So that's why we can here click on cancel and click on next. Backup can be created, of course. Settings also will be covered in the next episode. Protect customizations. Also here's something for the next episode. And what we want to do is to activate now the .files. Always a good practice is having in one workspace a terminal, because now it's possible that now this in my virtual machine, the system configuration will be now activated, and this can have this impact that the screen resolution and key bindings are not active anymore. And we need to reboot the system. So we go back here to the fifth workspace. Here is the terminal, and I enter reboot. Let's log in again, and the screen resolution should be restored exactly. And now we have installed and activated our development environment. So let's select here the Dotfiles installer, and you see it here. Yeah, now we have a new entry, activated Dotfiles. And let's have a look on the symbolic link. Let's cd into the .config folder. With ls-al, you see that now our folders are now symlinked into the installation folder for the .files. It's the .my .files folder. So everything worked correctly. And now we can start to develop and enhance our configuration. To do this, let's open code with our installation folder, code.my.files, and my news work, my hyprlandrice.dev. And here's code, and we have here access to our configuration. This is now live. This is now the live configuration. And when I open here a new window, and I open a recent folder, so my project, then I have here on the left side the installed .files, and on the right side my repository. And now you have three options to keep both in sync. So what I usually do is I experiment first in the installed directory. So for example, when I say, okay, I go here to the Hyprland conf and I scroll down a bit, and I want to increase the gaps in a bit because I think 10 looks much better. Yeah, now you see I have increased the gaps between the windows. And when I like that, then I go back to my Hyprland repository and go to the same line, it's 88, and do the same in my repository, and I push the changes to GitHub. With that, I have full control, and I can test new features before pushing the changes to the public, to the repository on GitHub. So But there are different ways to keep that in sync automatically. What you can also do is to work in the repository in your project and change the gaps back to 5. Of course, nothing changed because the changes are not synced back to your installed project. Let's go back to the Dotfiles installer, and you see here that blue arrow. With that, the files will be synced from the project folder into your installed folder. Let's do this. And I go back, and you see here now the changes are, the gaps are back to 5, and here are gaps in 5. So you can work directly into your project. Whenever you change something, you can push it into your installed folder. So this is another way, yeah, how to do it. And you can do this also completely automatically. Let's go back to a terminal. And for that, we need to install some more packages. Sudo pacman-s rsync jq and inotify tools. Okay, very good. And now let's switch into your project folder, projects, and then the folder my Hyprland Rice. And here you see that we have the dev folder, Dotfiles folder, and readme folder. In the dev folder, you will find a file that is called sync. And when you now run the sync script in the background, yeah, so it's running in the background in the terminal. Now we can go back to the second workspace and change something in our project. So for example, I update the gaps in again to 10 and click on save. Then you see that this change will be automatically synced into the installed folder. Yeah, let's do this again. By, for example, change this to 30 and the border size to 5. Yeah, so everything is directly in sync. And if you like it, then you can push the changes also to your repository. So this is also a very fast way. But as said, I prefer to test everything first in the installed folder. Yeah, in com-work my Hyprland Rice.dev in the my Dotfiles folder. And if I like it, then I move the changes manually into the repository, and then I have full control, but it's on your side. So let's change it back to 10 and the border size to 2. Save, and everything has been updated. And this is here the script that is listening to changes into your project folder. And if there is a change, then it will be synced automatically into your installation folder. Okay, so that's the overall setup. Okay, let's add a new configuration. What I want to do is to create a power menu with Wlogout. Yeah, so first of all, we need to install, of course, Wlogout with sudo pacman-s wlogout. Okay, you see that Wlogout is not available in the default repository of ArchLinux, so we need to install an AUR helper. And this is also very easy. Let's open Firefox, search for yay GitHub. And we can scroll down and you see here the steps that we need to do to install yay. Here it's also one command. Let's give it a try. And yay is installed. Now we can install yay -s wlogout because it's an AUR package. And Wlogout is now available. Let's test it. Wlogout. Yeah, and here's Wlogout. Very good. With escape, I can close it again. And this is what we now want to start when we click here on the exit button. To do this, I go back into my project, Waybar, config, and I scroll down and search for custom power. I remove here everything and I enter on click and I execute with that wlogout. I save it and you see that the same command is also now available in the installed folder of your .files, and with super key Shift B, this is what we have implemented last time. In the last episode, we can reload Waybar. And now let's click here on the exit button. And now you see that we have here the power menu available. Very good. If we want to change the layout and add a configuration for wlogout into our configuration, we need to add here a new folder, wlogout. And the project and the folder automatically appears in your installed .files as well. So what we want to do now is to add an own style sheet. So, and we need a default configuration. Let's search for wlogout GitHub. And here is the repository. And here we should find the default style sheet configuration. Yeah, it's in etc wlogout style.css, and this is what we will now copy into our project. So we copy etc wlogout style.css into our projects folder, my Hyprland Rice, .files, .config, wlogout. And now we should have here the style.css. Perfect. So if wlogout finds this file here in that folder, it will be used and not the standard configuration. And then we can work on that. Let's give it a try. But first of all, when we open the .config folder, you see that there is currently no symlink to the wlogout folder from your .config folder. So this is what we now need to do. And to do this, we need to reactivate the .files again. So we click here on active and click on install and activate now. And when we now go back, you see that, and look into the .config folder again, you see now we have a wlogout symlink to the project folder. So that's perfect. Now we can change it. So let's go here into the button style. And what we can do here, we can add a border radius of 20 and start wlogout again. And now you see we have a border radius of 20. Let's add a margin of 10 pixels. Let's see how it does look like. Yeah, and now we have space between the boxes. And this is how it works. So you have seen how you can use the .files installer to create a project, how you can sync the files from your project folder into the installed folder. You can also, of course, do it completely manually, how I normally do it. Yeah. So now let's have a look how I have set it up on my newswork .files environment. It's exactly the same. Yeah. So I'm here now in the .files project folder. I have here a dev environment. I have here the .inst file with a bit more information. We will come to that in the next episode. And I can open also the folder in my .files folder. So this is what is currently live. Yeah. And here I can then start to experiment new features. Now we have seen how you can use the .files installer to create a powerful development workflow. In the upcoming and last episode of that video series, you will see how we can prepare the .files for other users, for the distribution. And we do this again with the .files installer. We will create a special .inst profile that we will upload to your GitHub repository to enable others to install your .files easily with the Dotfiles installer. It's going to be, again, a lot of fun and hopefully a good learning resource for you. And with that, see you next time.